Happy Friday, Miami. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast. Do it every Friday at 4 p.m. Miami time. I'm going to turn over the baton to my co-host, no one else but Daniel Hernandez from Compass Real Estate. He does single family houses. He does condos. His office is over in Coconut Grove. Happy Friday, Daniel.
Happy Friday, Peter Zalewski. What's going on, man? You're looking good. You're looking dry. It's wet as hell outside there today.
I saw some videos from Biscayne Boulevard in greater downtown Miami, and people were getting flooded out, and it rained like an hour. I don't know what this city's going to do.
If you're a commuter and you live in downtown, you need to know that even if there's like a 30-40% chance of rain, torrential downpours. We're in September. This is like the heart of hurricane season. Don't leave your Tesla on that corner that floods if it rains for more than half an hour. Like, fool me once, fool me twice sort of thing. Or trying the craziest one is if you're like in a little sedan and you see people trying to go through the puddles. Like if you go through slowly, you might be able to eke through. Peter, you don't know anything about that. You take the trains everywhere.
Take the train. Haven't had a car since 13. Although I will tell you, right around the old Checkers. Remember Checkers? About 16th, 15th or so on Biscayne Boulevard. On one side, you got Checkers.
Across from the Omni.
Nope. Yeah, across from the Omni. They shut it down. That's a notorious Death Valley, if you will, for cars every time it rains. Granted, Death Valley is a desert, but outside of Checkers,
I know what you meant.
Is where everybody gets flooded out. That's where the tow truck drivers, the modern day pirates, that's where they make their money every time.
Modern day pirates. The other perilous spot is on the corner, right by Oko's new big condo building, 830 Brickell. There's a 7-Eleven there on the corner, and I don't know if it's like the pit of hell that comes out of that storm drain. But if it rains for any more than an hour, the whole block is flooded. And I have a buddy who lives on the corner unit over there in 1010 and 1010 Brickell, and we just kind of look, and it's it's like a peep show looking down at all the people trying to get in and out of the 7-Eleven, and the guy who owns the 7-Eleven has it down. He's got his sandbag stacked up as soon as it starts raining.
And that is the joy of living in South Florida with rising sea levels, allegedly.
Climate change is real. It's definitely real. I don't know. The global warming thing, they had to rebrand it because, there were so many talking points against global warming. There's so much snow. But in any event, this is Buy, Sell, Hold. Our format is we pick 5 topics. We have about an hour with you guys. Sorry we're a little late. It's Miami time. It's summer, and we were getting wet outside. So we pick 5 topics. We got a full rundown for you today. We allocate about 7 to 7.5 minutes to each topic. If we go over, that's okay. We call that overtime. Now, at the end of each topic, Peter and I are either going to buy, sell, or hold. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. But hey, we're adults and we can change our minds, right? And that's what this is all about. It's about civil discourse. We got to talk to each other, look each other in the virtual eye, if I may. So with that, let's jump right into it. Peter, by the way, is an avid data analyst. I mean, when you see an encyclopedia page tear out of data analyst, it should be Peter's big, bald, beautiful face. Now, today, the new jobs numbers from Bureau of Labor Statistics came out. I don't know who is running that department these days because there was a, firing. They got fired. She got fired. So the numbers came out. They were revealed earlier today. And Peter, what did they say?
Well, what they said is that the job growth is slowing. Understand there's 2 things at the Federal Reserve. This is the Central Bank of the United States. 2 things they're focused on. 1 is inflation and 2 is jobs. Ultimately, nirvana for the Federal Reserve, which is led by Jerome Powell, Chairman Powell. He's the one that President Trump's been going after because he wants interest rates to be lowered. And just a little tidbit on that. Every time you raise interest rates, housing activity slows. Every time you cut interest rates, housing activity goes up. We all know down here in South Florida and across the country, there's been a slowdown in housing transactions. Some people will argue it's because of high interest rates. So the Fed has maintained interest rates where they are, coming in ballpark somewhere in the vicinity of about 4.5%. Now, granted, mortgage rates are off of a treasury, 10-year treasury, but let's just focus on the Fed. 4.5%. They've been stuck there since December was the last rate cut. And President Trump wants lower rates. Why? Because he wants housing to take off. Housing represents about 10% of the GDP, but it punches above its weight. They say it's up to 30% of the overall economic activity in the United States. So Trump wants rates down, and the Fed's been focused on inflation, so they had to keep interest rates high. Now, suddenly, breaking out of nowhere, jobs are suddenly under pressure. Some people will say it's because of Liberation Day tariffs. And, we went from under 4% on average United States to over 17% on average tariff rate. And people are afraid to hire. Some layoffs that are occurring, simply that people aren't being replaced. And we got the AI. So people were looking to see what was going on with the job numbers. And in August, the numbers were released at 8:30 in the morning. Feds always release everything 8:30 in the morning before the stock market opens at 9:30 in the morning. Numbers were released in August a month ago, and by 3 o'clock that afternoon, President Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The position is currently vacant. There's somebody who's been named. Some people say he's a Trump loyalist to come in. So the latest numbers, the first set of numbers that come out since the firing, that infamous firing, suggest that job growth is coming in somewhere in the ballpark of about 22,000 or so. It was estimated, and Wall Street was hoping for somewhere in the vicinity of 75 to 80,000. So we are
They missed the mark by 75%.
They missed the mark by 75%. Yeah, according to CNBC, payroll rose by 22,000 in August. The street was looking for it to come in somewhere in the vicinity of 75 to 80,000. As a result, the U.S. unemployment rate is now at 4.3%. So unemployment is ticking upward. At the same time, inflation, which Jerome Powell has been focused on since about 2022 or so, inflation is also on the rise. Back in February, it's coming in at 2.3%. Right now, it's coming in at 2.9%. There's going to be numbers that are coming out, I think, in the next week or so. If inflation's going up and unemployment's going up, the Fed has a problem because they have two responsibilities. One is inflation at or below 2%, and we're blowing that, and maximum employment, and that is also in jeopardy as well. So we have ourselves a little bit of a conundrum. But if you are a real estate person, you want lower interest rates because you think housing activity is going to take off regardless of whether or not people have a job.
That's interesting. So explain to the viewers, Peter, a few weeks ago, Jerome Powell went out to the Tetons. I love how you pronounce that, by the way, the Tetons. He went out to Jackson Hole.
Translates to, right?
I do not.
Yeah, a tit.
My mind's in the gutter. What do you want me to say? So Jerome Powell, Jerry Powell, old man Powell, as Peter would say, comes out to the Tetons, Jackson Hole. We'll call it Jackson Hole.
Jackson Hole.
And mine's in the gutter today. Jeez, it's all the rain. And he alludes to the possibility of multiple rate cuts by the end of the year. You can interpret it however you want, but we have 3 meetings, September, October, December. Why there isn't any one in November? They're busy celebrating Thanksgiving or whatnot. But if we get even 25 basis points, 50 basis points, 75 basis points in the next few months, we talked a little bit about what the repercussions for the housing market, consequences. I don't want to say consequences because it's not an ominous thing. It's a positive thing. If we lower interest rates, there's more activity in the housing market, and people can take lower interest loans. They can borrow money for cheaper. And what do they borrow money for? They borrow it to buy houses, real estate, condos, single family home. So
refinance.
Sure. If you bought a house, if you had to buy a house in the last 3 years or so, and you were caught between that 6 to 7.5% interest rate, I think the general rule of thumb is that if you can refinance by a full point, it's oftentimes worth it. Is that the general thinking, Peter?
That's normally what people sort of kick around. Yeah,
but keep in mind, obviously, depending on how much what your PI situation looks like. If it's a relatively new loan and you're paying predominantly interest, then you're going to benefit more from refinancing. If you're in a relatively mature loan, you only got 5 or 6 years left on your loan, you're predominantly paying principal, the benefits might not outweigh the cost of you refinancing that loan, right?
Correct, because every time you refinance it, ballpark it at 1%. Let's say junk fees and processing fees, origination, all that type of stuff related to a refinance.
Hey,
So if
mortgage
it's a
brokers
million
have
dollar loan,
families too. They have to charge junk fees just like the guy selling me my car. I'm kidding. I have a 15-year-old car and Peter doesn't have a car, so you're not finding any sympathy over here, new car buyers. So we're about up time on this first
well,
topic.
Daniel, if I could just mention, so the 16th and 17th of September, the FOMC, which is the Federal Open Markets Committee, that's the group
That's
that
when the
votes.
governors meet.
Yep, they're gonna vote, and coming in based on Old Man Powell's speech at Jackson Hole on roughly the 22nd of August, he said they're going to shift from being focused on eliminating inflation to suddenly trying to prop up the job market because they could see indicators the job market was going sideways. By the way, we lost about 78,000 manufacturing jobs since Liberation Day tariffs were put in place.
That doesn't make any sense. I thought they were supposed to bring back manufacturing jobs.
And there is the argument you're supposed to onshore manufacturing, and therefore you should have a growth. Some thought it would be 100,000 jobs added to manufacturing. Instead, we lost 78,000 according to CNBC. So as a result of this, and I know we're up against the clock, 25 basis points is what was anticipated for September. Remember, 16th and 17th of September is when they're going to meet, they're going to vote, and then there's announcement's going to come. It is now skyrocketed to 50 basis point cut basically in 2 weeks from now, and then an additional 25 in October, an additional 25 in December. So we could be talking about 100 basis points or 1%, which would mean mortgages would go from a 7%, potentially down to a 6 handle. And early on, as this talk was building up steam, some people were saying they could go as low as 5% within a year from now. So this is the question that everybody's sort of kicking around. And this is why Wall Street is starting to get a little bit anxious. They want lower interest rates, but at the same point, they want people to have jobs.
6.29% as of today. That's as low as I've seen this 30-year fix in probably year to date.
And that's what we're up against. So the question becomes, are people going to go in and buy because the interest rates are low, even if they're uncertain about their job?
That's a good question. I don't know. Hey, I don't want to be a W-2. That's not why I do what I do. I would be terrified if my job security was on the line. But, I guess our job security on the line is on the line every day with the way rates are.
What one other tidbit I would throw out, we're finally seeing, according to the analysts, we're finally seeing the DOGE cuts. Remember the Department of Government Efficiency? We're finally seeing them start to work their way through the system. So now it's starting to hit. So the expectations are going forward. The unemployment rate is likely to increase higher and higher going forward. At least that's what the analysts are saying.
Well, I mean, before we move on, I have my reservations about our fearless leader locally. That's Mr. Ron DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm sorry, but really, we need some Doge action down here in Miami-Dade County. $402 million deficit. Are you crazy? With all the property appreciation that we've had, it's absurd. It's absurd. But that's not what we're talking about today. We like to stay on topic here at Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. Big money. Oh, lest I forget. So job numbers, are they realer, Peter?
I'm saying they're real, and I'm saying they're a buy, and I'm saying that people need to possibly reconsider their base case scenario going forward as we head into the busy winter season.
Peter's a buy. I am a hold, and I'll tell you why. Where are these numbers coming from? Who's accountable for these numbers right now, Peter? There's nobody in the job.
No one.
Nobody in the hot seat. So,
there was a former Fed official, former governor, who did an interview today, and that person said at this point he has no reason to doubt the numbers thus far because a permanent person hasn't replaced the former and the fired individual who got blown out a month ago, and therefore there probably wasn't any meddling as of yet.
I'm not saying that there's meddling. I know there are very smart people doing very difficult jobs in terms of our monetary and fiscal policy, right? You have our elected officials, you have our appointed folks. I'd like to think most of them are pretty smart, right? And they're trying to do their best, they're mission driven, or at least they were back in the day. But there's only so many levers for them to pull. And if the inflation lever didn't work and now they're trying it with the jobs, it's just, there's a lot of experimenting going on, and I don't know. I'm holding. I'm not definitive about it.
So I think the way to frame this is, are you a person who does one task at a time, or are you a person who multitask? I'm a one task at a time type of
Right.
person,
And I think
and
that
I'm
the one
terrible at
the,
multitasking, and that's
I
what the
think
feds are doing now.
I think you have to be with your horse blinders on and commit to a strategy and see it through, because if you start playing hopscotch with the policies, it's too short term thinking. But hey, I'm a hold, you're a buy. Next up, big money, big compounds. And we're not talking about compound words. We're talking about complexes, like where Mark Zuckerberg wants to live in Hawaii, or where he does have his big bunker in Hawaii, or where Eric Schmidt has amassed no less than 5 properties in the Sunset Islands area here in Miami, or Mr. Bezos, Jeff Bezos, who, congratulations, Mr. Bezos. I heard you recently got married in Venice, Italy. Very nice. A lot of, it's just so cute. But in any event, he has, I think, three um three properties on Indian Creek, which has been dubbed billionaire's bunker, because you have to be a billionaire to own property there. I think he's got something like $200 million in acquired land there. And then our boy Ken Billions, the assemblage god of Miami. That's I'm coining it. The assemblage god of Miami, Ken Billions. He's got an assemblage in Brickell. He's got an assemblage down on Vizcaya, which technically is Brickell. And then he's got the assemblage on Star Island. He owns something like what, 30-40% of Star Island. But you sent me an article, Peter, and it's about this trend, right? You got Zuck, you got Ken Billions, you got Jeff Bezos. These are just people that come out in the media, but this is also a development trend. There's that big company out there, Discovery Land International. They go all around the world and they build like these massive, I'm talking thousands and thousands of acre developments. They did Baker's Bay in the Bahamas. I think they're doing one in Costa Rica. They're, the ones who put Yellowstone and all these Montana ranches for billionaires on the map. Nobody really gave a shit about Montana until, well, that TV show came out, and well, because Discovery Land International built out this giant development. Rich folks want land. They don't just want to live on the water. I'm sure if they want to live on the water, they can afford to live on the water. But what's mine? What in the world nowadays, since everybody's just on their phones, everybody's got one of these, right? Everybody's got the same apps. We're all kind of the same. But what differentiates you if you're a really rich guy and you got a plane, I got a plane, we got the same plane, but who's got the better property on the beach? Who's got the bigger property on the beach? Who's got more beachfront? How big of a boat can you fit in your backyard? You don't have to go to the marina. And these, this sort of amalgamation of trends in ultra wealthy real estate, we're seeing that all play out here in South Florida. So tell me a little bit about that article that you sent.
Yeah, so there is something called the Robb Report. Robb Report is related to.
It's a fun magazine. It's like $10 at the airport.
Yeah, exactly. But they really roll up the sleeves and they get in there. So they identified a trend. And as I start to tell you about this, and as I reference the article, I just want you to keep in mind that one of the issues we opened this show with was a little bit of rain and everything is getting flooded out. And I also wanted you to recognize that a lot of parts of the greater Miami and South Florida area are man-made. Dredging from bays or river is put down and land is suddenly created. So that is the theme you should keep in mind as I sort of talk about this. But what the Robb Report is reporting, and let me go with the headline, forget a mansion. Miami's ultra wealthy are amassing luxury compounds